Hey students, so the next topic is classify rocks as igneous, sedimentary or metamorphic. So these are basically the types of rocks. Okay, so the first one is igneous rock. So igneous rock is formed when melted rock cools and hardens into solid rocks. This type of change can occur at Earth's surface or below it. So basically how igneous rocks form. It starts as melted liquid rock called magma or lava. Okay, so when this liquid cools down and freezes into a solid, it becomes igneous rocks. And where this can happen deep underground or on the surface after a volcano erupts. Okay, so the next one is sedimentary rocks. Okay, sedimentary rock is formed when layers of sediments are pressed together or compacted to make rock. This type of change occurs below Earth's surface. So basically, small pieces like sand, mud, and pebbles get piled up in layers. Okay, over a long time, the weight of the top layer squeezes the bottom layer so hard that they turn into solid rocks. Okay, and this usually happens at the bottom of lakes or oceans. Okay, so the next one is metamorphic rock. Okay, so metamorphic rock formed when a rock is changed by a very high temperature and pressure. This type of change often occurs deep below Earth's surface. Over time, the old rock becomes a new rock with different properties. So basically, this starts as an old rock, like it could have been igneous or sedimentary. Okay, when that rock gets buried very deep, it gets baked by extreme heat and squeezed by massive pressure. It does not melt, but it morphs or changes into a brand new rock. Okay, and it basically deep below the earth surface. Okay, so see this diagram. This is the igneous rock, this is sedimentary rock, and this is metamorphic rock. Okay. Okay, so the next one is how do rocks layers form? So this slide basically explains how rocks end up with layers, kind of like the pages in a history book. Okay, so materials that is carried by wind, water, or ice is called sediment. Okay, sediment may be deposited or laid down in places such as deserts and the ocean floor. Different types of sediment are deposited in different environments. For example, sand may be deposited in a desert and mud may be deposited at the bottom of the ocean. So basically, as I have told you that nature moves tiny pieces of stuff around like sand, mud, or pebbles. These pieces are called sediment. Okay. When the wind or water stops moving, it drops the sediment in a new place. This is called deposition. Okay. So how layers build up? Basically, the environment of an area can change over thousands of years. When the environment changes, the type of sediment that is deposited also changes. Over a long period of time, different layers of sediment can build up in the same area. These layers preserve a record of the environments that existed in the area in the past. Okay, as many layers of sediment build up, they can be pressed together to form layers of sedimentary rocks. So basically, imagine a desert where the wind piles up sand for 1,000 years. Now imagine that area turns into an ocean. Instead of sand, mud starts falling to the bottom. You now have a layer of mud sitting right on the top of a layer of sand. Okay? Over millions of years, more and more layers pile up. Okay? So, a series of rock layers is called a rock sequence. You can observe the layers of a rock sequence to learn more about how an area's environment change over time. So, basically, the weight of the top layer is incredibly heavy. So, it squeezes the bottom layer so hard that they turn into solid rock. A whole stack of these layers is called a rock sequence. Okay. So, because different environments leave behind different types of sediments like sand for deserts or mud for oceans, scientists can look at these layers to see how the earth's change. Okay. Okay. So this diagram is like a map showing how rocks travel and change their identities over millions of years. So the starting point is this magma. Okay. So wait. Yes. So the starting point is magma. So everything being deep underground with magma, melted or liquid rock, you can say. When magma cools down, it hardens, okay? And it becomes igneous rocks. Like if it stays underground, it's intrusive. If it shoots out of a volcano, it's extrusive, okay? This and this, okay? So the next surface is outcrop, which is this. So, when rocks are pushed up to the earth's surface, like uplift, you can say, they form an outcrop. Okay? Rocks you can actually see and touch outside. So, rain, wind, and ice beat down on these rocks, and the result is that the rocks breaks into tiny crumbs called sediments, which is this sediment. Okay? So, the next one is the wind and water carry that sediment away and drop it in layer. Okay? And the change is that the over time these layers are buried and squeezed together that glue together to become sedimentary rocks. Like you can say that sediments become sedimentary rocks. So the next step is that sometimes rocks, which is you can say that it can be any rock like igneous or sedimentary, get buried very deep where it is incredibly hot and clouded. Okay, so the change is that they are baked by heat and pressure. The result is that they don't melt yet, but they morph into metamorphic rock. Okay, so if those metamorphic rock get pushed even deeper into the earth, the change is that it gets so hot that they finally melt again and they become magma and the whole cycle starts all over again. Okay,